Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christy Ruffino.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. This is Christy Ruffino, the host of this show. And today I have the honor and privilege of interviewing and having a great conversation with Therese Nicklas. Welcome, Terri.
Hey, Christy. So great to have this conversation with you today.
Oh, gosh, absolutely. So I want to kind of just start by introducing you without formally introducing you. I'm going to get to your formal introduction in a moment, but I was connected with you by a good friend of mine, and she gave you glowing reviews and talked about how you helped her through a crossroads in her life. And now she still raves about you. You helped her with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of planning and strategy to make sure that her decisions were setting her up to have a comfortable future. And so that, like, she talked about you and then she's like, oh my gosh, you've got to have Terri in your book. She's just amazing. So that's kind of how I first met you. And that was a really great introduction.
It was. And the reverse was she was introducing me to you at the same time and raving about all the work that you've done and how you work so hard to get women's stories out in the forefront so that they can actually profit from them.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about your story because it's really a great story, but I want the audience to know a little bit about your credentials. We don't have this super long bio, which is always wonderful for me as the host to read this, 5-paragraph bio, but yours is short and very powerful that really sets up who you are and why you're qualified to help women in this way. So you are a certified financial planner, a certified money coach, and a certified success principle coach. So that's a lot of certifications, a lot of knowledge and training.
Yes. That it is.
Terri specializes in helping executive women who are at the crossroads of their life and feel uncertain about their next steps. She helps empower them with smart money strategies so they learn how to build their new, big, bold life with certainty, clarity, and confidence. I love that. And it's definitely true with my friend.
Well, you know something? It was interesting working with your friend. While I was helping her, she was helping me, because along my journey, which I talk about my journey in the book, trying to find my purpose and who I serve the best and who brings me joy to serve, working with her was like the tipping point for me, because as we worked together and her challenges, her problems, the questions that she asked, that I said, I know I can really help this person. And there are so many others just like her that I said, this is who I want to serve. And learning how to say no to good things, but so I can say yes to great things. That was what your friend really taught me.
I love that. And so, I have this conversation over and over again with women who I coach about niching down. And that phrase about learning how to say no to good things so I can say yes to great things is exactly what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of that is the confidence piece.
Right.
Because if you don't have confidence that A, you are serving, number one, and B, there are enough people that you are serving out there. I mean, let's face it, how many people can you actually serve in the course of a year?
Exactly.
Right? You can only you only have so much game in you. So you don't need 1 million people. You need your niche, and you can get rich in a niche.
You can. But so, and this is not really where the conversation was meant to go, but I do want to take a moment to just point out that it does take us going through the process to figure out what our niche is. That's what happened with your friend and my friend, our mutual friend, is that you had been serving other people and you got a light bulb moment with her and probably a couple other clients like that. And you realize, ooh, this is where the gold is, right? It was a process for that too.
It was definitely a process. And I think part of it too, Christy, the process for me was when I met our mutual friend, I realized that somebody at her level, and I've talked to, many other women that are like at her level, and in the back, this was my limiting belief. And this is kind of a little nugget for our audience, that everybody has limiting beliefs, and especially around money. My limiting belief was, why would somebody who is so successful need to talk to me? And then the flip of that is, people that aren't successful, like people that are struggling, may need to talk to me, but they don't have the resources to hire me. So it's like you're stuck in this dichotomy. And after working with our mutual friend, I realized that people like her delegate, and that's why they're successful. That was the key. That was the light bulb moment for me, was that even though they're successful, they have a great career, they make good money, they've done a lot of things right, it doesn't mean they don't have questions. And when they have questions, they have to know who to delegate those questions to, so they can get thoughtful answers and feel empowered by making smart money decisions.
Completely. And the mindset, I think, is a key piece to that. And I know when I work with women in one of my programs, the first thing we focus on is, what is your big vision and what is your limiting beliefs about accomplishing that?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can know that up front, we are able to navigate through it and be prepared when those thoughts go in our head, and like those sabotaging moments, right? The self-saboteur inside us is worse than anybody else can. What anybody else can do. Yeah.
It's what I call the itty bitty committee. I
Yeah.
have another word that I use in there, but I edited that out for your audience.
The itty bitty,
but and these are all of our subconscious limiting beliefs. And until we can take them from the back of the brain to the front of the brain, we cannot deal with them. So you have to feel it to heal it.
Yes.
And the way that you do that is by identifying, recognizing, and not judging. So we don't play the blame shame game. We just play the identification game. We realize it, we identify it, and then we can create a new thought process or a new habit to break through that block. It's just like if you're trying to quit smoking. I was never a smoker, so I probably shouldn't speak to this, but if, people that I know that had quit smoking, the number one thing was they had to be aware of what were their triggers when they wanted to have a cigarette. It might have been after a meal, or, after they, have a cup of coffee, or whatever it might be, that there were certain little subconscious triggers that said, I want a cigarette. Once they identified those, now they could create a new habit and eliminate the bad habit. And anything that we want to do in life to grow, to improve our situation, whether it's involving money, it's involving our business, it's just involving life in general, it's the same path. You have to get on this road and take this path. And the path is identify what's in my way. If it's a thought, we have to change it. If it's a behavior, we have to change it. And we have to replace it with something, because nature abhors a vacuum.
Well, we've already had so many great nuggets already, and we haven't even gotten to the second half where we're going to talk about some of these great ninja tips that you want to share. But yes, and what I love about what you're sharing, and we're going to get into your story in just a moment, guys, hang tight, is that you don't just know about money management, but you understand the mindset behind the decisions we make or don't make with money. So hang tight. We're going to get into some amazing teaching here in a minute, but let's talk first about your story. Why are you so passionate about helping women be able to be more empowered with their money decisions?
Chrissy, I love that question. Thank you for asking that. Well, as I share in my story, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was my role model when it came to money. Now, when you think about her time period, she came to the the United States in 1928, right before the Great Depression. And she was leaving Sicily, which has always been depressed. I mean, they didn't need a Great Depression, it was always poor. And she knew that the only way up for her and her family was to leave, which is, when you think about it, I know I moved from one town to another, and that was traumatic. I can't imagine getting on a boat with the baby and traveling for 10 days and not even knowing what's on the other end. So the amount of courage that my grandmother and others like her took with the hope of a better chance or a better life has always inspired me. But especially because in that time frame, most women were not in charge of the family finances. But my grandfather really wanted to marry her, and she gave him two ultimatums. One of them was, take me to America. The other one was, I'm handling the money.
Wow.
And she, I mean, these were blue collar, as blue as it gets. My grandfather was a barber, my grandmother was a seamstress, but they always knew how to, or she did, because she was the one who was doing everything, put a little bit aside. And she used to talk about this, but not in a way that was like, sit down, I'm going to teach you about money. It was all very conversational. And one of the things that I noticed with her, and this was like my light bulb moment as I got older and would reflect on her, was that no matter how hard things were, she had such a positive outlook regarding money. She did not have a mindset of lack. And that, of all the people that I knew that either lived through the Depression or had their parents and they had that like the ghost of the Depression following them around, she didn't have that. And even as a kid, my father used to talk about it and used to say that they, as kids, they didn't realize there was a depression because they always had food on the table. They didn't have wolves at the door. They didn't have any insecurity around somebody who's going to take their home away or anything. And it was because she knew how to do things. And I've studied that and thought about that for a very long time and thought, what made her different? And then fast forward to like my mother's generation, where these were the first of the stay-at-home moms, you know, the post-World War II. And my mother and my aunts, like her siblings, had absolutely no knowledge around money. And as a result, were very dependent on their husbands, whether or not their husbands were worth being dependent on. So I had one aunt in particular that was in a very abusive situation. And she got a divorce in the early 60s. And this was something that just did not happen. And at the time when she was going through the divorce process, I can remember it. And I was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. Maybe I was 8 years old. I forget exactly how old I was, but I was a little girl. I didn't even know what the word meant, but I do remember her sitting at the dining room table with my grandmother telling her that she's applied for a divorce. And my grandmother was beside herself. My grandmother had just lost her husband, and she was completely dependent on her husband for her finances. And her response to her daughter was, what are you, crazy? Who's going to take care of you? Now, she was leaving a very bad situation, which probably took every ounce of courage that she had. And here she goes to talk to her mother about it. She gets absolutely no support.
Wow.
And I thought, now as an adult looking back on that, I thought, isn't that horrible? And I can't tell you how many women I have encountered in my career that are in very similar situations. And it was like, how many times do I have to be whacked on the head to say, this is what you need to do to help people?
Yeah. Wow. What a powerful story. I mean, learning from as a child, so many of the women that I work with, and I know we had that conversation when we first spoke, is a lot of times people think that their story needs to be something that they went through. You went through some crazy job change and didn't know how to manage your money. That wasn't the case with you. Your story was about what you witnessed as a child, learning by watching your family navigate through
Right.
the positive mindset and the negative mindset.
Right. I mean, I had both situations right in front of me. Thank God. I mean, I had the positive from my grandmother, because having those roots helped me navigate many hard times financially.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that information, if I didn't have her teaching, And I don't know why I was the lucky one. I mean, I was the lucky one in so many respects, as I share in my story, where, I'm not even supposed to be here. I was 8 weeks early in 1956. Premature babies just did not survive.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
if they did, there was usually a very big problem health-wise. And I know it was my grandmother's faith that kept me alive. I believe that with every fiber of my being, that it was her faith and her mother, who I never met, but that's who I was named after, that between the two of them, they kept me alive.
Wow.
And as I grew older and would think about these things, and, I shared in my story that I had that very vivid dream, and it was me really trying to discover my purpose. And it was this 20-year journey that I went on. And it was reflecting on all of these other things that had happened. It was almost like you lay down and you like rewind the movie camera for your whole life, and you just watch your life go before you.
Right. The short of your movie, right? The short of
Exactly. And thinking about my mother's sister and her story, and then my father's side of the family and my grandmother. And I'm thinking, how is it that people that have no resources to speak of other than the gray matter between their ears, how is it that they are successful? And yet there's so many other people that have a lot more going for them, and financially they're a disaster. And this is how, and I share that it's really attitude, it's mindset that is the key. Mindset is 80% of our success. The other 20% is action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So your story is about finding your life's purpose,
Mhm.
and you have found your life's purpose. It's really been a joy for me to kind of see your evolution in this last year. And we're going to take a quick break because you're going to get back and you're going to share about money strategy. So even if the audience didn't have those amazing two examples of the good money, setup and the bad money setup, you're going to be able to change that for them and give them the right resources and teach them how to have the right mindset. And so they can have an amazing success story around money.
Yes.
Perfect.
I want that for every living female. That's my goal in life, is that every living female has the opportunity to have the resources they need to have a big, bold life of their dreams.
Awesome. All right. So let's take a quick break. Hang tight, everybody. I know this was already the first segment of this episode was so juicy, but we're going to have even better things to share coming right up. So hang tight.
Do you have a story of courage, strength, and perseverance? Are there people out there who could possibly benefit from the wisdom you gained through your journey? If so, we invite you to join our Overcoming Mediocrity team today. Our authors not only enjoy the benefit of having an Amazon best-selling book easily and economically, they also have the satisfaction of leaving a lasting legacy in the world as their story is distributed to audiences across the globe. Visit OM95.org to learn more. And while you're there, be sure to grab our signature Story Made Easy guide to learn how you can write your story to attract more prospects and serve more clients. Once again, that is www.omapply.org.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Christy and Therese Nicklas, and we are talking about all things money. And so, first of all, before we dive into the whole mindset around money, Terri, I want to ask you about money being this taboo. Like we shouldn't talk about money. And, maybe if you've got really close friends, you may dive into money. But usually people don't bring that subject up because it sometimes can be very challenging, right? Why is that?
Well, the money is an energy, Christy. It's definitely an energy. And for a lot of people, it is a strong trigger. And for many people, when I ask them, when I say money, what happens in your body? And they'll often say they get like a cramp around the belly button. So that's your solar plexus. So they get like this little contraction, and that's tension. And why is that? And it's generally because of whatever money stories you've been told in your lifetime. So I had shared at the beginning of this show, the situation that I had, in my home, money conversations just did not happen. And if they did, they were very contentious. So as a child witnessing that, what do you pick up? Kids see everything in black and white, and they say money is bad, or talking about money is bad. So then as you get older as an adult, this is what you experience. Now, the interesting thing was my grandmother, she talked about money like she was sharing a recipe. It was just very comfortable, very natural. And one of her children was the same way, and that was her son that I had worked for. So I had that blessing of having two examples, two very strong examples of people who were extremely comfortable with money and having a conversation around it. And their outcomes were so much better than anyone that I knew that could not talk about money. And that was, okay, I'm connecting the dots here. If we can teach people how to have comfortable money conversations, even if they're the conversations you have in your head, even if it's not with another person, even if it's just your own thought process, that itty bitty committee, you get them to have a positive money conversation, your outcome changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can you share, like, how do we do that?
Well, it's like building a muscle. So it's an exercise. So the first thing that you do, if you have a difficult time around money, and if you want to start with yourself and you have a belief around money, let's say, just trying to think of a common belief.
Well, should we investigate what the negative belief is first?
No, not
No.
necessarily. So let's just say anytime the subject of money comes up, the first thing that pops into your head is, I'm bad with money. All right, so that's your limiting belief. I'm bad with money. What happens? Your being bad with money becomes your reality. Okay, so the way that you change that is when you catch yourself having that thought, you have to reverse it, even if it's not true. But the more that you keep telling yourself something positive around money, like, I create more than enough with ease and grace. Whatever, keep it short and simple. And then instead of that negative thought, you replace it with, I create more than enough with ease and grace. That's going to become your new belief. And then guess what? That's going to be your new reality.
So you take that negative limiting belief and you reframe it, right? Like,
exactly.
I say
that's a good way to say it. You reframe it.
Yeah,
Yep.
You create a new decision matrix around that and reword it in a way that now you're reprogramming those synapses right in your brain to be able to believe that. I know at a time in my life when I had, like, after my divorce, and I had a lot of debt, and it was just like crazy, right? Trying to, as a single mom, navigate all of the the crazy credit card debts. It was very bad, right? A lot of red in my books, right? But I would say I'm great at managing money, because I was great at managing my debt.
Yep.
So I still had that belief about, I'm so great at managing money, even though it was not the black money, it was the red money. So I don't know if that was good or not, but it definitely helped me kind of feel better about what I was going through and not internalize it.
Well, that's great. And you know what? You probably were really great handling money. You just didn't have enough to handle.
Yes, completely.
So for somebody who finds themselves in a similar situation, you can reframe their thought instead of being, oh, I'm bad with money. No, with what I have to work with, I am awesome. I am awesome at handling what I have to work with. And I think that was, when I think about my grandmother and how little she had, that had to be, maybe not those words, but it had to be something similar to that. She always had confidence that she could create what she needed.
Yes. Yes. All right. So we talked about money being a taboo, and we talked a little bit about how to master a positive money mindset. And so I know that's, like, it's the foundational piece, right? Those are things that are really important. But now, say we're at a position in our life where we're, when we're younger, we don't necessarily think about the future. Some people do. But some people wake up in their 40s or 50s and think, oh my gosh, what do I do? How am I going to retire? Where is my nest egg? Is it too late to start?
It's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. You know, you want a tree. When do you plant a tree? 10 years before you need it, right?
Right.
If you didn't do that, what's the second best time? Today.
Today, yes.
So no, absolutely. If you feel as though your nest egg is a little empty and you're behind the 8 ball, you should have started sooner, forgive yourself and move on. That's like one of the number one tips to money management by having a more positive money mindset is forgiveness. And you have to forgive yourself for whatever past mistakes you've made. If you cannot forgive yourself, then you can't do better behavior. You're still staying on that hamster wheel.
Yes, absolutely. So I know for me, I had a past guest, and I'm not sure what episode it was, but she's a retail maven. So not a money manager at all, but she helps businesses manage money from the business perspective. And one of the things that she shared in her episode was that with your bank, you can set up an automatic process of every time I deposit money in my checking account, I could set it up where a certain percentage of that will be immediately transferred over to my savings account. And
Yes,
I
you
did
can.
that immediately. And it's been an amazing thing for me to now have that little nest egg, right? And that was something that was, I don't even think about it. I don't miss it. It's just an organic part of my financial process. So in addition to that, can you share any other kind of really great tips that we could maybe start using that will help us right away?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. Autopilot is your friend. So anytime you can set up a savings process and put it on autopilot, whether it's going into your savings account, whether it's going into a retirement account, whatever it may be, then anytime you set that up automatically, set it and forget it. Now you don't have to make that decision to move XYZ into whatever account. So I like to look at money in buckets. So I like to, if you picture 3 buckets, okay, first bucket is an emergency fund. So that's like things that could come up over the next 12 months. All right. The next bucket is things that you may want, need, or, plan for over the next 1 to 5 years. And then the third bucket is long-term. So that would be more like retirement or something that's about 10 years or more out. Each one of those buckets should be getting filled. And this is all coming down to habits. So one of the things that I always advise people on is forget the number for like 1 minute. It's the habit that I want you to form. So I've had people say to me, oh, I live paycheck to paycheck. I could only, if I'm lucky, I could save $100 a month. Well, it's $100. I don't care if it's $10. It's the habit of living slightly under your means. It's that's part of the mindset that is a trigger for creating abundance. And then whatever that number is, divide it up amongst those 3 buckets. So emergency fund, I strongly recommend that people have approximately 6 months worth of basic living expenses in an emergency fund. It's just cash. Don't worry about the interest rate. Don't make yourself cuckoo trying to chase down CDs and things of that nature. It doesn't matter. This is just money you have on hand so that if a tire blows or your furnace goes, you're not running to the credit card. You say, that's what my emergency fund is for. Then the next bucket would be like, let's say you're planning a trip in a year or 2 years. You don't want to put things on credit cards. You want to have the money available. So if you had that $100 and or let's say 90, I'm just going to make an even number. You'd put $30 in each one of the buckets.
Okay.
All right. And that's just to get you started. If you don't have any emergency fund right now, you might want to put more there because that's more immediate. And then once you have that built to the level where you need it, you just go and fund the other 2 buckets.
Okay. Love that. One of the things that I learned in this process was to have that savings account or those buckets in a bank account or in a place that you're not seeing it regularly. Because when I saw that with all my accounts, I'm just like, oh, I have all this money. But as soon as I hid that savings account, it's still in the same bank, but I've hidden it. And so it's not as easy for me to just easily transfer money around.
Mhm.
I found that to be helpful.
That is helpful to many people. They find that helpful, like out of sight, out of mind. But for some people, knowing it's there, like seeing it, inspires them.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
really depends on your personality. If you're one that if you think to yourself, oh, if I know that money is there and if I'm reminded of it all the time, I'm going to be moving it to the checking account and spending it, then yes, you want to take your strategy of hiding it.
All right. Well,
But
that just says a lot about me, right?
no, everybody's different. And, I see both sides of that. And
Yeah.
it's like when people look at their 401k statement, if they don't look at it, then they're not thinking of, oh, how can I get that money out?
Right.
So
Right.
some people are inspired by seeing it. Other people, it's like, oh, I want to spend it because it's there.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't about spending it. I don't know. It's just more about moving things around. I'm not quite sure. But so let me ask you one more question about this whole autopilot piece. Can you set that autopilot up to automatically go into 3 different buckets, or do you have to put it into one? Or does it
No,
depend on the bank?
no, it doesn't really depend on the bank. If you're a payroll employee, like if you're a W-2 employee, your payroll company, whoever is doing the payroll, like HR, let's say you work for a big company, you can set up almost as many slots as you want. So you could have a payroll slot for your checking account. You can have one for a basic savings. You could have, let's say, 3 or 4.
Got it.
And let's call it those 3 buckets. And you can indicate how much you want to go into those buckets and then have the remainder go into your checking account.
So mine is set up not through a payroll account, it's in my bank. So anytime a check is deposited or money is deposited into my checking account, it gets automatically transferred to a savings. But, I guess we're not going to get into that because that's probably not a question you would know, but I would imagine I could probably go in there and set it up to be divided into 3 different
You
savings
can.
accounts. I like
Yep.
that, honestly.
Yeah, you can. You can
Rather
set
than
up automatic transfers. They call them ACH, and it's just automatic transfers into any account anywhere.
Yeah. And it's just a percentage. So whether or not I get a, $1,000 check or a $5 check, it just, that percentage goes into the different buckets. I love that.
Yep.
Cool. So now I'm going to
Yeah.
go one step further. Instead of having 1 bucket, I'm going to divide it into 3 buckets.
Very good. Yeah, I had a young man who's 18 years old ask me over the weekend if he should open up a Roth IRA.
Oh,
And I said, you've got college, you own a car, you have to buy gas for it. You're not going to be retiring for 50 years. Let's take care of the next 5 years right now.
well, you know what? That's great that he's thinking.
I know, it is great. And I didn't want to discourage him, but at the same time, let's be a little realistic.
Yeah. Well, so do you have one last nugget of wisdom you want to share? Because I know you've got 2 great gifts that you want to talk about, but before we go there, is there anything else you want to talk and share about money really quickly?
Yes. So a lot of times people think that the reason I'm bad with money is I don't have enough. And that is a myth. It's not how much you earn, it's what you do with what you earn. And I've seen that across the board. I've seen people who are 7-figure earners not have enough money.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that earn less than 100,000 a year, even less than 50,000 a year, that is, always have a little extra to save. I had a client once who her family was in China, and she would send money home to her parents, put money in a savings account, and paid for a private school for her kids. And she wasn't even earning $60,000 a year.
Wow.
And it was like, I don't know what miracle tree you're sitting under, but I mean, she was just amazing at how she managed. So it's not what you earn, it's the decisions that you make and what you do with what you earn. That is key.
Well, that is a really great thing to end on. And I know you are one of the authors in our most recent Overcoming Mediocrity book, and we are recording this show right now. And I'm looking at Terri, and behind her is this beautiful bookcase with all these books. And I'm hoping the next time, because I know your books just got delivered, I'm hoping to see your book on your bookshelf right behind you. Because it was a great book. We made it to #1 on the Amazon bestseller list. And I know your story is Very incredible. You are sharing 2 gifts. One of them is included in your book, and then you have another one that is just specially for the
Just
listeners of
for
this
all
show.
the listeners of this show. I have a course that I normally charge $97 for, but for the listeners of this show, I am giving it to you for free. And the name of the course is Save Money Without Sacrifice. It's a 5-day course. It won't take you very long to go through it. And the reason I call it Without Sacrifice is because very often when people think of saving money, they either think, oh, I must be a penny pincher. All I'm thinking about is money. What do I have to give up? And this process that I've created is not about giving up anything. It's not taking you from Nordstrom's to Walmart. It's not taking you out of Starbucks, if that happens to be what you enjoy. It's really about savvy. It's about being money savvy, looking at where your money is going, making decisions about, is it all going in the right place? And if it isn't going in the right place, changing that. So it's a process to help you build your money muscles by building awareness around where your money goes.
Perfect. And I know you are also sharing the shortest path to success.
I
course.
am, yes. And that course is all about mindset and purpose. And I went through this process myself about almost 2 years ago. And when I did, it was like the light bulbs went off. I've been going on this 20-year journey of trying to discover my purpose. And after going through this course, this program that I'm sharing with everyone, that is when all of the pieces to the puzzle for me came together. And it has changed my life. And that's why I want to share it with everyone, because it was just such a powerful thing that I did. And I don't think I would be having this conversation with you today, Christy, if I hadn't gone through that, because I'd still be trying to figure it all out.
Oh gosh, yeah. And that's not a good place to be for sure.
It isn't, not at this stage in my life, because I'm already on the back 9. And I said, if I don't figure it out now, I don't want to wait till I get to the pearly gates to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. Well, Terri, thank you so much for being on the show. If you want to connect with Terri, all of the links for her website as well as social profiles will be in the show notes below. She's also included the link for you to buy the book from her. And I know she'd be super happy to autograph that and send it off to you so you can not only read her story, get her book, but get that free gift that is included with her chapter. And the link for this other free gift, the Save Money Without Sacrifice course, which I think I'm going to listen to that, because it sounds like that would be something for me to maybe learn a couple more things that I haven't already implemented.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. We're all here to learn and keep growing. And I know you have this is your area of expertise. So I'm sure I'll be blown away with things that I didn't know anything about.
I hope so.
All right, Terri. Well, thank you for joining me today. And if you, the listener, learned anything from Terri, I encourage you to share those tips with people you know, like, and trust, because first of all, we learn more by teaching others. And second of all, helping other people learn how to manage their money is going to bless them as well. And of course, if you like our show, please go to whatever platform you listen and subscribe, review, show us some love, because the more support we get from our listeners, the more chances we have to continue to get amazing guests like Terri. So thanks everybody. And thanks especially Terri.
Well, thank you, Christy. This has been so much fun. I love doing things like this and happy to share with your audience. And I really hope they got something out of this.
Yes, great. Have a great day. Bye-bye for
You
now.
too.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.